Hey, what's up, gun nuts? It's Ferrari Steve from RealGunReviews.com. Today I thought I'd take you through what to look for if you're considering purchasing a used West German SIG like this P226 here that I found at a pawn shop. These guns really have a special place in my heart. I got a soft spot for them, and they tend to follow me home like sad-looking puppies from the pound. I don't like them too beat up, but a little bit of wear isn't a problem. But it's sometimes hard to know unless you spend a lot of time with these guns exactly what to look for as far as originality and condition. So I figured I'd do a video that talks about those two particular things in determining whether or not it's a good value and whether or not you want to own the gun. So let's eject the magazine, do a quick safety check on this one. Visually and manually inspect, make sure the gun is clear. So let's talk about, again, those two categories of things you want to look for. You're going to want to look for originality, or that I guess contributes to collectability, whether or not you want to have a museum-ish piece or not. And then more importantly, condition. And whether or not you want to have a collectible museum all original piece, condition is going to be important in determining whether or not the gun is worth owning. So let's take care of the easy one first, and that's just originality. So if having an all original gun is important to you, obviously things like the original box, manual, the original test target, anything like that, original paperwork from when it was purchased, that kind of stuff is going to drive the collectability and originality of the gun up. More likely than not, however, this is going to be sitting on a shelf in a pawn shop. You're going to be lucky to get one original mag with it, and that's generally the condition I find the ones that follow me home. So let's look at what you're looking for to make sure it's all the bits are there. And again, if all the bits aren't there in the one you're looking at, that doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't buy it. Just keep in mind that might give you a little bit of negotiation room with the pawn shop owner or the gun store owner. Gun store owner is probably going to be more conversant about it, but a pawn shop owner may not know every single little bit about every single gun. And so if you are armed with some knowledge, it might help you out. So let's look at the magazine. So if you just ejected it, on an 80s vintage SIG, and we can tell from the date code on here, it says JJ, that means 88, so we know about what time this gun was manufactured. Obviously before 1988, or in 1988, at least the slide was manufactured, and those stamp marks mean it was proofed in 88. This magazine should have a little zigzag, kind of jigsaw pattern to it. That means this is an original vintage mag. Have this little dimple too. And it should just overall look like it's not too brand new, unless it's new in a box. But if it's not new in a box, it should have some wear on it, right? Some dings, some scratches, and that's pretty normal. Next thing you want to look at is the grips, and these are the original grips, these black plastic checkered grips. And I talk about, I've got an article on Real Gun Reviews about grips to talk about how you can only use these grips with the original trigger bar spring, the bent style, not the looped one. I've got another video coming that'll discuss that more in depth. But anyway, these original grips, it might be important to have them with a gun. I generally will take them off and hide them and put them away, but I like to have them for originality's sake. The original screws are going to be these flathead screws, and there might be a little bit of wear, maybe even a little bit of rust inside, and that's okay. Those grip screws are really easy to replace. You're going to want to look for this flat style takedown lever, that's the original one, and these non-checkered, but this kind of flat style, the horizontal lines in the mag release and the decocker and the slide lock lever. One of the other important things you're going to look for is originality is the sights. So what you might call lollipop or straight line, or they're actually called von Staubenhagen sights. And you can Google that if you can figure out how to spell it. I wrote an article on the history of these sights and the man who created them, and really an interesting guy. The only patent he ever did was for these sights. He was actually a photographer and a theater set designer, and just kind of an interesting dude. So maybe I'll put a link in the video to that article. A really interesting read. But these are the original sights, and there were two versions. The back are always going to be this von Staubenhagen style, and it could have a night sight on the front, or like this other West German SIG here, just the standard painted front sight is okay. Another thing you want to look for originality-wise is finish. Now this finish is a little bit more rare, not massively rare, but you might notice, especially if you compare this to the finish on this is a 1987 226, you might notice, and I'll move it around so they kind of reflect differently in the light. This one is darker and shinier, and this one seems more matte and kind of gray. That's because this is the standard SIG what they called SIG bluing, or SIG blue, even though it's kind of gray. And this was a special coating called K-coat. And the K stands for Klein, because Klein Industries in Erie, Pennsylvania is who developed this coating. And it's a polymer or plastic sprayed coating that they still do today, actually, because it was better resisting corrosion than the standard SIG blue. And you could also get this gun in electroless nickel, which is super rare but gorgeous. If you happen to see one of those, grab it. But this K-coat was good at the time, but there have been better things since then. But that is an original finish. You might look at it and go, oh, that looks like somebody sprayed something on there. Nope, that is an original finish, so that's totally fine. And when we start talking about condition, we'll get there too. Another big thing you want to look for is serial numbers. And on this, there should be 3 locations where the serial number is located on the 3 main parts: the frame, the slide, and always ask permission before you field strip somebody else's gun. You want to look on the barrel on the hidden side here and make sure that serial number matches the serial numbers on the frame and the slide. And if it does, and chances are it probably will, then you have a 3 serial number gun, or has all the original serial numbers, so that you know it still has all the bits that came with it when it was born. So as far as originality goes, that's pretty much it. So let's move on to condition. A few things you can look for. Obviously, just generally the overall cosmetic vibe. A few nicks and dings are going to be okay. If it's K-coated, you're going to want to make sure there's no rust underneath it. I've heard reports of some rust underneath the K-coating, but this K-coating actually looks pretty good. Keep in mind the K-coating was only on the slide. The frame, I believe, is anodized. And so normal chipping in the anodized finish is going to be okay. Some wear from, holster wear. You don't want the gun to be beat up. You might see a little bit of hammering here where somebody took these roll pins out and pulled out the block. That's actually not a bad thing, because it means someone cared for the gun and maintained it and didn't, just neglect it. You're going to want to do a function check. Dry fire it, cycle it a few times, make sure it's feeling okay before you start really getting into the nitty-gritty. So there's a few things you can look for on each section of the gun. So let's do the easy ones first. As far as the spring, now there's not really any way to go, okay, that's 17 pounds. But if you've got the original spring in there, I don't know, I'd consider swapping it out. Just, these are super cheap, these factory replacement springs for the 226, spring 26. But the original one, if it doesn't have the little orange paint down here, probably means it's the original spring, and you might want to change that out. Condition on this one, you can tell right away this has been polished. The previous owner polished this, and that's not bad, especially if you're not having a museum piece. But if you were looking for a new in-box style, that condition might take a few points off for you. Same here. They've polished the guide rod, and that was one other thing I should have talked about as far as originality. This guide rod is this metal hollow one. SIG also made some solid guide rods out of steel, but chances are, which is okay, that's still original, but chances are it's going to be this hollow style. If it's a plastic one, that's not original. That's a later one that somebody's put in there. But anyway, condition of the spring, not that important, because you can just swap that out. Let's talk about the condition of the barrel. So a couple things you can do with the barrel. You're going to want to, if it's got these little slide smileys on it, the smileys from the slide on the barrel, that's okay, but you're going to want to run your finger along it and make sure it's smooth. If you feel, and run your fingernail, if you feel any dips or any major grooves in there, that means that it's biting on the slide and something's not aligned right. So this one feels really smooth, and that's okay. You're also going to look right here where it notches down in the chambering portion of the barrel here. You've got this squared off portion right before it converts to the round portion. You're going to want to make sure this is a clean 90-degree angle right here. And if it's rounded off at all, if I look here, I can see that the previous owner, when he polished it, did not polish off that black coating. And it's a little bit, worn there. That's normal wear, but it's not rounded off. That's still a nice clean 90 there. If that's not a clean 90 there, that means something's not lining up properly, and you may want to pass on the gun, because you're going to want to replace that barrel. Or, use that as part of your information to get a better deal on it. But this should not be rounded off at all. This should be a nice clean 90, and this should be nice and smooth on the barrel. There's really not much you can do looking down there. It's probably going to be dirty anyway, so if you're looking for scoring in the barrel or anything, Probably not much you can do there unless you want to clean it there in the store, but chances are it's going to be okay. I mean, you can look in there if you see any huge gouges or something. That might be warning, but chances are it's going to be dirty. And I've been shooting this one, so it's dirty. Anyway, on the barrel, that's what you're going to look for. On the slide, you're just going to look for general slide wear, right? Make sure that the sights look lined up, and there's no way to tell how accurate they are looking at them, but just looking for overall wear, and make sure it's not too shiny underneath here. A little bit of wear is okay. One place you're really going to want to look for is here in this little slide stop notch. You're going to want to make sure that this is not rounded out in this corner here, that this is a clean 90. It should be rounded in the front, right? But here in the back, it should be a nice clean 90 and not have metal taken out of there. If it's rounded out, that could mean that the previous owner is riding that slide catch lever when he's shooting, and it's kind of catching and wearing here weird. So you want to make sure that this is a clean 90 in right here and not rounded off at all right here. Wear here is normal and fine, and again, you just want to make sure it doesn't look totally beat up. But really, the telltale of how much a gun has been used is on the frame. And most people are going to look here on the rails and go, okay, it looks pretty good. But that's not where you want to look. Really, you want to look at the underside of the frame rails. That really tells the tale of how used this gun was. And if you feel it, it's not, there's a couple little bumps there, so that's not going to tell you much. It should be smooth on the top. But the color of the finish is really going to be the telltale sign. So if it's a dull black, and again, this isn't K-coated, the slides are all just anodized. If it's a dull black, kind of like the finish here, if it matches that, that means it's not even shot. I mean, brand new kind of finish. More likely, there's going to be some wear. So if it's a shiny black, and here it's shiny black because it's lubricated, if you can wipe the lube off and kind of look. If it's shiny black, and most of this is shiny black, then that means, probably a few hundred rounds through it, and that's, decent wear. If it is dark gold or orange, that means that the pigment inside the anodizing is starting to wear. Totally normal. After a couple thousand rounds, that's bound to happen. If it starts getting to be a bright, shiny gold, then the pigment is really starting to wear in. Again, that's totally fine. The frame is still protected from the coating. Next, it'll get to a lighter gold, meaning that pigment of the anodizing is starting to wear through. Then you'll get to where this one is right here. It's a shiny silver. The shiny silver is still okay. That means the frame's protected. But from this point on of the gun's life, you really need to make sure that you are lubing this frame really well. You don't want to create any more wear here. So I like grease on the rails of a P series. So make sure that for as long as you own it, you keep these really well lubed. That shiny silver is totally fine. However, if that silver goes to a dull silver, don't buy the gun. The gun is shot out. That means it's been used a lot and not lubed properly, and that anodizing is worn through, and there's not much you can do. It's unprotected. Now, you could, if you say, well, I'm going to get a really screaming good deal on it and then Cerakote it, okay, that's fine. But just know, you don't know how much it's been worn through. And if you see dull silver, that's a big warning sign that the anodizing process is worn all the way through down to the frame, and it's probably shot out. So that might be a warning sign that this SIG is good just to look at and not shoot. We've talked about the as long as we got the frame out, let's look here too. You want to look at the trigger bar, particularly this high point here. This tab is called the disconnector tab. A factory brand new gun, this will be perfectly rounded. One that's been shot a bunch will start to have a little wear on the top. You can see this kind of has a flattish spot that's worn there. That's normal. That's normal use. You don't want that flat spot to be too wide though. Again, it's perfectly round when it's brand new. This is the part of the trigger bar that sits the highest in the frame. And when it's worn, it's going to be a little bit flat on top, and that's okay. The way to test that still everything is cool is put the gun back together. I think we're pretty much done inside here. Put the gun back together. And pull the slide back. Let's see if I can do this on camera here. Pull it back a little bit, there, and try to pull the trigger. And the hammer should not try to fall, right there. Pull that slide back about 1/4 inch. You should be able to move the trigger. And if the hammer does not try to fall, then that disconnector tab is still working just fine. And from how small that flat spot was, I'm not surprised on this gun. We talked about the barrel, the chamber section. We talked about, we talked about pretty much everything, I think, as far as condition goes. So this one in pretty good shape, and that's why it followed me home. So as for what you should pay, that really depends. I mean, I can't really answer that question because hopefully this video is going to be on YouTube for a while. And, go on Gunbroker and realize that those are just asking prices. Come on into one of the SIG Sauer Facebook groups. I have them in the SIG Sauer Official Fans Facebook group. Come on in there and ask, snap a photo. And don't be in a rush to buy it. I mean, most people are going to let you take a picture of the gun, even find the serial number. Call SIG and ask them about the serial number. They might have records that tell you a little bit about the gun. So there you go. That's what you want to look for when you're considering purchasing a used P226 or any other P series, particularly West German SIG Sauer pistols. They're great guns. I mean, this one's not a museum piece, but it's fun, and it's a piece of history, and it's a renowned, well-known, well-respected firearm, and for really good reason. So get out there, get yourself a West German SIG. You'll love it. Then get it dirty, then clean it, then get it dirty again. Get out there, practice, practice, practice. So the first time you have to pull that trigger, it's not the first time you have pulled that trigger. Have fun and stay safe out there.